Here it is, 1 year in this COVID style of worship. How does it feel knowing that we have rounded the corner, worshiping outside in the heat and the cold, on Facebook with innumerable technical difficulties, or even in the nave of this church where everything is just ever so slightly off? How does it feel to recognize that our lives have been so tangibly disrupted now for an entire year? I remember the first Sunday we didn't offer services. I came up to the church anyway. I put on my black, I put on my collar, I turned on the lights, I lit the altar candles, and I sat at that back pew and experienced a whole host of emotions. I was angry. I was sad. I felt lost, not knowing what to do, how to lead. Everything was wrong. Zeal for your house will consume me. Now, I've always loved the gospel reading for today, and probably for the reasons you'd expect. Jesus cleansed the temple. He literally makes a whip and drives out the cattle out of the temple. He flips tables and money goes flying across the stone floor, ringing. He's angry with righteous anger because people have been misusing the temple or the church, if you will, to profit themselves. And Jesus ends all that with a violent display of aggression. Now, we don't see this behavior out of Jesus often. That's why I love it. One of my favorite Christian memes says, if anyone ever asks you, what would Jesus do? Remind them that flipping over tables and chasing people with a whip is well within the realm of possibilities. But see, I've always seen myself as one of the good guys in this story. I felt like if I were there, I would have picked up a whip myself, or at the very least, cheered Jesus on. But this year, the story's hitting me a little different. As I look back on this past year of disruption, I wonder if Jesus would have turned that whip towards me that Sunday 1 year ago. You see, when people began to question Jesus, his behavior in the temple, he says to them, destroy this temple and in 3 days I'll raise it up. That's easy in hindsight to recognize that he was talking about himself, but they didn't. It wasn't clear to them. They thought that he was talking about the literal temple that he was standing in. They didn't understand that his colorful display of anger at the temple marketplace, because, well, that was normal to them. Everything he drove out was normal to the times. It was Jesus who was acting out of place, not the cattle, not the money changers. But that's kind of the point, isn't it? His disciples remembered that it was written, zeal for your house will consume me. The line in the Gospel of John is taken from Psalm 69. I have become a stranger to my own kindred, an alien to my mother's children. It is zeal for your house that has consumed me. You know, we often think of zeal for the Lord as a good thing. And it is. Our enthusiasm with God, when we come to our church, our fanaticism to share God's message of unconditional love, these are good things. But that's not what's happening here in the story. What's happening here is different, isn't it? It almost seems as if the people in the temple had forgotten why they were there, that their zeal wasn't for God, but rather the temple, the building itself. Raymond Brown writes, John interprets the psalm to mean that the zeal for the temple will destroy Jesus and bring his death. I feel like that Sunday, 1 year ago, my zeal was for the temple, not for God. I wanted my life to be normal. I wanted my priesthood the way I understood it. I wanted to pray, to preach, to profess, confess, absolve, and minister the sacraments the way I did every other Sunday. And I was angry I couldn't do it. Zeal for your house will consume me. That day in March, the church doors were closed, because people were getting sick. People would soon be dying at an alarming rate, and yet I sat on that back pew thinking about my comforts, about how I wanted my normalcy. Sometimes, We need colorful displays of aggression to snap us back into the mission and ministry of God. Sometimes we need to watch our Savior lose himself, maybe flip some tables, make a whip, drive out the distractions of normalcy to make way for the divine. Sometimes, maybe sometimes, the doors of our church need to close for something greater than our routine, so that we can recover why we even go in the first place. This past year, something was taken from us. There's no doubt that there's been a great loss as we have not prayed, confessed, and consumed the sacrament together in our temple, as we have not been able to grieve the losses of our friends together. And so I do look forward to the day when we gather as God's community with one another face to face, unobstructed by a mask or even the hesitancy of an embrace. But when we do, when we are able to gather, let us not forget that everything we did this year that took us away from normalcy, that work, that ministry, that absence from one another, was a movement of love for our community to keep one another safe as best we understood, as best as we were able. By our distancing, we love the divine image in everyone whom we didn't encounter. So this year, while it might have been devoid of sacrament, devoid of the temple, our mission, our ministry, our love of God shined through everywhere. I love you. God bless you. And goodbye for now.